website right now and download my free course on alternate picking mastery. It contains 5 essential exercises that will take you to alternate picking mastery faster than you can imagine. And then I've included my method of how to lay out a practice plan in just 1 to 2 minutes that will absolutely boost your results like nothing you ever tried before. So go download it right now. It's free. Hey, how do you practice using intervals when you solo? Got a question from a guy who bumped into a course that was all about intervals because, when we practice scales, we often do it, up and down. And then when we solo, we play, right? Because we have that movement. So we basically, we just go up and down the scale like that. We don't do a lot of crazy jumping around like. Right? But, the jazz way of going about it, most jazz and fusion players have been doing exercises like playing intervals up the scale, like doing a fourth, for instance. Right? But I never liked those exercises, fourth and sixth and seventh, and you do thirds, and so you basically, pick different intervals within the scale, and then you play those up and down. So you practice, training your fingers to do that, and train your ear to some degree. But I never liked the exercises. They sound like, to me, they don't sound good. They don't sound like music. Sounds like ugly systems. Some sequences like thirds I really like. Some of it sounds good, but I never really liked doing those. So how did I develop any skill in this area? Well, arpeggios, for one, is a very good idea to break up the thing that you're playing and focus on, just to have a simple A minor triad in the top there. And then simply focus on one note at a time and creating something around that. So next note in the arpeggio. Next note in the arpeggio B string, 13th fret. Next note, 14th fret G string. All right, next note. Next note. And if you do that enough, you get. Then you simply move, you kind of, instead of your path being just the scale, you have an arpeggio that is your path. So you go focus on that note, and you crawl up, and you get a totally different sound. One note there, another note, in the C major 7th arpeggio, another note, root note, right? And if you start sequencing your arpeggios, then right, and going up and down in different patterns, then suddenly you have a lot more space in between your notes because arpeggios have more space in between their notes, right? So that's a really cool idea. But the ability to actually know what note come out before you play it for your brain, that's not something you do consciously, but when you improvise, it comes from a different place. It comes from playing a lot, but basically what happens when you play a lot is that you get to know the scale shapes. Scale shapes are a visual thing on the guitar. They're not on the piano, right? Because you have this grid here, this matrix where you can put dots on it, so you can actually see the first position, cage shape, major shape here, like the C major scale, right? It has an identity, like the D major chord down here. Remember that one? It has a visual identity. If you take a D major triad on a chord on a piano, it looks exactly like other chords, So, but this D doesn't, So we have visual identities, and that is you can couple or pair that visual identity of a shape with how it sounds when you move through it. Okay? So let's say you have the first position, C major shape. K shape here. Then just for an exercise, divide it up so you're only working on the 3 top strings here. Alright? And then start improvising within it. Start focusing on different notes and then listen to how that note sound with other notes. See, I'm focusing on the note in the 7th fret on the G string, and then I'm... And just now, if you do this enough for just 2 minutes, you start being able to sing the freaking notes, right? 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 If you do this enough, because you get used to this shape in your brain, and then where the notes are and how they sound. It happens automatically if you don't need to know what intervals they are. You don't need to know what notes even. And if you move the whole thing and play a D major key instead, it's the same shape. It's just in another place on the neck. Right? Right? And then you can pick another note. Let me go back to C. A little lower there. Let me pick the C here in the 8th fret. Same shape again. Right? So you focus on one note and investigate. How does the intervals sound? And if you can sing them, and you don't have to sing in pitch, you can just sing as poorly as me, and it's okay, right? Especially if you're in a room by yourself, nobody listens to it. But that totally, it anchors in the shape in your mind, and then how it sounds moving back and forth between the different notes. So when you're improvising and playing something, let's say over a C major chord in the background. Then the most magical thing happens that you actually start knowing what you're doing. You actually know how that next note sounds. Just like I know what the next word sounds like I'm going to say. I'm not thinking about the next word. My brain just knows what happens when it goes there. The same thing here. Exactly the same thing. And so you can start creating melodies. Let me just do an A minor in the background. Now I'm using the A minor scale. Right? I can sing that as well. Not because I'm such a genius, but because I've been moving through these shapes here, and I know how that sounds. I know the... Right? Right, and so forth. And that's really the place you want to get to. And that will absolutely open up playing in intervals. Because, why would you play, the next note in the scale when you know how every other note sounds from the note you're playing now? It's really what opens up your playing and makes you so confident that if you have to do a melodic piece or play a couple of notes in a solo, you just absolutely know what you're going to do. And you start associating, like when you're talking, you associate notes. Because you can go, right? Like you can sing it. Like try this actually. Try. See if you can improvise a melody here. Right? Can you do that? if you can do that, can you do that? Because then the only thing you need is to translate that ability to being able to know what the next note will sound on the fretboard, because you know how the next note will sound when you sing. If you don't, you have to do what most people do who can't really sing. They have to, you have to search and probe for the notes, just like you have to search and probe for the notes here when you don't know what happens when you go for the next fret, the next note on the fretboard. So I hope that makes sense. But it's basically just practice, and it's a good idea to have a jam track, to have something in the background, and then really stay in one place on the neck instead of moving all over the place. Stay on just 3 strings for an entire day or an entire week in one scale shape. Right? If you're using the cage shapes, you've got 5 of them. If you separate those into 2 times 3 strings, then you have 10 little shapes that you want to get to know intimately. That's not a lot. 10 weeks. One week per little 3-note shape, where you just spend time each and every day just walking around, investigating how does each note sound in relation to each note, focusing on one at a time, and then going back and forth between the other notes. Right? Look around, right? Get to know your environment, and then that would absolutely bring you to the place where you can jump to any note and know what it sounds like. Subscribe for more free videos. Do it. Do it now. Do it.